We're going to play a really interesting race here. I've been kind of postponing this because I think it's going to be very difficult, but I'll try it. There's a lot of ways to play this race. I personally would probably want to play, one of these musculoid, really crazy looking races, but I was checking out one of the 40K history videos on the Imperium of Man, and a lot of the people on the Stellaris forums, on Reddit, kind of inspired me to make this race. And I played 40K a little bit, and it kind of fits the motif. This is some of the new stuff they've added in 1.6, and it's just really interesting. Basically, we're going to pick, the species name is going to be the Empire of Man, or Mankind. The plural is Empire of Men. The adjective is Empire of Man. And the Imperium of Man is a galaxy-spanning interstellar human empire, the ultimate authority of a majority of the human race, the Milky Way galaxy, in the 41st millennium AD. It's ruled by a living god, is known as the Emperor of Mankind. However, there's other humanoid species classified as imperial citizens, mainly mutant offshoots of genetic-based line humans, and known as the abnihumans, and known as a subrace of the origins. Ratlings and Squats, the founders and rulers of the Imperium, is a godlike emperor of mankind, the most powerful human psyker ever born. The emperor founded the Imperium over 100,000 Terran years ago into the late 30th millennium during the unification wars on old Earth, following a terrible period, and the history goes on and on. There's a lot of history to this because it's part of the 40K universe. And it literally, there's a 3-hour video on it if you want to check it out. It's really interesting. The link will be in the description. I'm going to pick Imperial 1 is the name of the guys. So these guys are the dudes with the Space Marines and stuff like that. And you probably check them out if you've been playing actually Warhammer 40K. I tried to look up on Reddit what other people thought their traits could be. So I picked up Resilient. They have a garrison health plus 100. Fortification plus 50. Slow learners because they're pretty stubborn people at this point in time. I picked this background. I'll show you that in a second. Industrious is plus 15%. The ruler I just picked as a random guy. We could pick a random guy to basically be the ruler. The real ruler is sort of the God Emperor, but he's been sort of, way I understand it, after his fight with this guy who was like another corrupted space marine of chaos, he was kind of he was kind of in an incapacitated state. So the background, of course, is this golden throne, where he's actually hooked up. But I guess they're actually ruled by a council now. I picked clothes number 58, and this is the hairstyle and stuff that I picked. We're gonna live on an arid world. It could be continental, but since it's we call it old Earth, and we could actually pick the Sol starting system. The star name that we're going to pick is Sol. We could actually pick that system if we wanted to, and I believe I have the improved. So this is like basically Earth's one version of Earth that we could play, which is kind of interesting. City appearance, I ended up picking, you could pick the Mammalian one, but I ended up picking something called a Stellar City. It has a little bit of a unique look, kind of more blocky, Victorian looking Earth. There's a lot of different ways you can do it. That's fine. So here on to the really interesting stuff, their government and ethics type. We're going to pick Imperial as a way to do it, just the way I think the structure of the Empire is set up. And then also, you could pick the dictatorial though, which would be totally fine. But I think that they basically have I'm going with the motif mostly that they have a God Emperor who's sort of like incapacitated, and then it's led by like a council of men. So as the men die off, then they can take over. So the only way we can play Fanatical Purifiers is basically to purge the filthy Xeno of the system. Is to pick a fanatic xenophobe, and you have to pick some level of militaristic ethics. So I would love to try to do this playing with a hive mind collective as a fanatical purifier, but that's not really what fanatical purifiers are all about. They are about the society appears hell-bent on scarring the galaxy of all sentient life. Come out what will may, they will suffer no Xenos to live. So over the course of many millennia, the Imperium of Man, they're just really against basically fighting off all Xeno. And they've encountered many Xenos. And this is just a way for me to play it. You know, this is just, I'm trying to add a role-playing aspect to it. And then they have a warrior culture. As you kind of know, the 40k universe, so they have a ton of army damage, plus they have this thing that's similar to what in the 40k universe they can actually use. They use this Armageddon bombardment stance. So I'm assuming, and that's talked about a lot in the 40k stuff as they enter this particular ship bombardments, where their ships enter orbit. So actually that fits pretty well. And also we gain unity from purging Xeno pops. So also, of course, the lore extends in the 40k universe, where you have this thing where we're trying to fight Heresy and things like that. We're a blood court, so we could go into that. And this government is heretical form of rabidly xenophobic aristocracy, where the ultimate responsibility of the monarch is to oversee extermination of all lesser species in the galaxy. So it's a way for us to play a fanatical purifying race. I think it's going to be very difficult to do, because as soon as you purge anyone in the galaxy, they pretty much come right after you. Another way to do it, I wanted to pick up Imperial Cult, but we need to have some degree of spiritualist. You have to be an Imperial authority, and you have to have some degree of authoritarian. So we have to basically be some degree of spiritualist and authoritarian. So it'd be here and here. So unfortunately, I feel like the Imperium Man is very xenophobic by nature, and in the 40k universe, we're constantly fighting other people. The way the Space Marines really kind of are, beyond just being carrying out the Emperor's will, they do sort of have an extermination rhetoric. So this sort of fits in with the role-playing element of playing them. The Empire name is the Imperium of Man. The adjective is Imperium. The flag is actually kind of close to what the actual flag is. I could actually go try to find a mod that actually gets the exact flag, but man, this is really close. All that's missing is another eagle's head facing the other way, and the eye is shut. And what it is, it's what I guess the symbol means is the eye is shut, looking backwards into the past. So basically the mankind is looking forward into the future and sort of tends to ignore its past. Starting weapons, we're going to use projectile weapons. That makes the most sense, just from like Space Marines and everything. Now, what's really interesting, I honestly would want to pick up warp travel, but if we are going to try to roleplay the Imperium of Man, we actually have to use wormhole travel. Basically, the way our ships travel is through using navigators and traveling, I guess, through the warp, which is where the extra-dimensional creatures and things like that in the 40k universe come from. So that's how we're going to do it. There was actually a mod that was released, and then we're just going to pick this mammalian ships to make the most sense. We're going to save. There was actually a mod that was created for the Imperium of Man, and basically a whole 40k mod when this game first came out, but it was like, it basically overrode everything. Like, you had to play it as a 40k universe. Like, you could play a lot of different species, but this is one really crazy race that I've been interested in playing. I just want to make sure it doesn't have the same background as these other guys. Yeah, it doesn't, but these guys have a nice little ornamental throne. So this is a great way for us to try to play basically a Fanatic Purifier. So let's look at this modification again. This is such a unique way to play the game. Basically, we get a ton of bonuses. This is a super militaristic culture, which fits the 40k, again, fits the 40k genre. It cannot gauge in diplomacy in any other species. Okay? Xenopops will always be purged and have no effect on tradition cost. We gain unity from purging Xenopops. That includes any Xenopops like that we find like in our own borders too. We may use the Armageddon bombardment stance. I'm interested to see what this does. Our fire rate is increased by 33%. Army damage increased by 33%. Army, yeah, so traditional cost from Xeno slaves minus 100%. So I guess here's the thing. Like we could actually use, similar to these other guys I was playing down here, the Mind Flayers. We could actually use, we can actually play with slaves if we want to. But honestly, like we're basically hell-bent on destroying all species in this. There's actually, since I play with a lot of mods and so forth, that pretty much ruin the way to play Iron Man mode. We are not going to play in Iron Man mode. The patch for 1.6 comes out tomorrow. We're going to turn on Endgame Crisis. We're also just going to have an elliptical galaxy just to make it easy with the wormhole stuff. We're just going to have a little bit more stars than normal. We could play on huge, and that's not a problem. It would be 15 guys, but we bump it up. Or we could play on 1,500 stars. I found that playing on 2K stars was just a little too much. I felt like 1,200 stars is between 1,250 and 1,500 stars is a really good amount, because I was playing on Galaxy. If you don't play on elliptical, it feels like if you do play with the spiral arms, which is what I did before. I have been playing before with spirals or rings, which is pretty cool as well. I might try to play a ring one another game. But elliptical, it gives a really nice dispersion of all the galaxies. I'm pretty sure we're going to piss off a fallen empire, and this game is going to end kind of quickly. They are turning Iron Man mode into a quarterly save, which is cool. We're turning off advanced neighbors just because it's going to be too difficult, because most of the time we are going to get an advanced neighbor, and either since we can't engage in any diplomacy with them, the game is pretty much over. So we have to set up the game in a way that gives us a chance to try to do it. So let's set it up and hit play. Let's have some fun. In the eons of the first primitive empire, man communities took shape in the dry canyons and the mesos of old Earth. Or it's called Terra, I guess, in the 40k universe. Our civilization has spread and prospered. There were other Imperium cultures once diluting the purity of our society with their weakness. These renegades were dealt with one after the other until our world has been utterly cleansed of their taint. Today, we are the only pure ones remain, and now after successful creation of artificial subspace wormholes, the finest minds of the Imperium men have finished constructing the first wormhole station at the edge of our system, and the stars themselves finally within our grasp. One other interesting trait, so they're slow learners. I explained this. They kind of like are accustomed. The Earth has been fought over many times, and there's been many wars on Earth. And it's not perfect. The story isn't perfect because realistically, this is such a large galaxy, and like with Stellaris, your ethos can change a lot. So here's just a few additional mods I play with. We're going to turn off it, so we don't want to have the AI keep up with us, but we do want to try out. We could have playable guardians. That would be kind of cool. We could maybe build this big dreadnought or something. But we could turn on the option to do it. I've never done it. It's such a late game thing. You need about 20 to 40k fleet power to really start fighting Leviathans, I think. So we're going to have 100% of the Leviathans in the system now. And here we are. So this is 1,500 stars, I believe. And you can tell there's a good amount of star density. Like you can see, there's just look at near the core of the universe here. There is a lot of star density. We could probably actually bump this up to 2K stars. But I just feel like 1500 is a reasonable amount. Once I started playing with 2K stars, there was just way too many AIs. And especially as we're playing a fanatic, xenophobic, purifying race, we can't engage in any diplomacy at all with anyone. So I'm interested to see how this will play out. Stay tuned and check out my Let's Play channel if you want to continue the adventure of the Imperium of Man. And I just wanted to show you how to create this race and check it out. And I'll upload the series over there. Thanks for watching.